Okay, today we're in section 4.6, mixed numbers and improper fractions. Should be on page 185 in your books. Alright, so in example 1, I have the mixed number 3 and 5, 6, and I need to change it to an improper fraction. Well, the first thing I need to look at is my denominator. What number is in my denominator? A 6. The 6 tells me how many pieces or parts my whole is broken up into. So imagine a whole, imagine a pizza, okay? And in that pizza, there's 6 pieces. Well, if I have 3 pizzas, right, because 3 is my whole number, how many pieces are represented? Well, the way that I find out is I multiply 3 times 6. And what's 3 times 6?
18.
You can do that mentally. You don't necessarily have to write the X to show, but 3 times 6 is 18. And then I add 5 to make what? What's 18 plus 5? 23. And that's how I come up with my new numerator in my improper fraction. And then I keep my denominator. So 23 over 6 would be my improper fraction. Now, what makes this fraction improper? What makes it improper, Zach?
The big numbers on top.
Okay, the numerator is bigger than the denominator. Everybody agree that 23 is bigger than 6? Yeah, it's bigger than 6. So that's why it's an improper fraction. All right, so let's look at another one. 2 and 3/8. So now how many pieces are my wholes broken up into on this fraction? What's my denominator? 8. Okay, so now how many pieces are in my pizza? 8. Okay, so if I have 2 pizzas, 2 times 8 is 16 plus 3 is 19 over 8. See how I'm doing that? All right, now what if I had a whole number? How do I write a whole number as an improper fraction? Helena? You put it over 1. Anytime you have a whole number, you can put it over 1. And again, all of these fractions have one thing in common. The numerator is larger than the denominator. And that is what makes it an improper fraction. Okay? Okay, so now we're going to work numbers 1 through 4. Your turn now on page 186. The numbers are up here on the screen. But we're also in your books on page 186. We're doing your turn now, numbers 1 through 4, changing these mixed numbers to improper fractions. All right, so what would number 1 be? Just tell me. What would it be? 7/5. Very good. What would number 2 be? 2 over 1. What about number 3? 9 over 2. And number 4?
15 over 4.
All right, very good. Who got them all?
Me.
Awesome. Good job, guys. All right, now in example 2, now we're going the other way, and we're writing improper fractions as mixed numbers. So we start with the fraction 23 over 6. And we need to ask ourselves, how many times does 6 go into 23 without going over? That's the key. Can't go over. And how many is it?
3.
It's 3 because 4, well, what's 6 times 4? 24, that's too many. So it goes into 23 3 times. And now for my numerator, I need to subtract. This is how I figure it out. What is 6 times 3? 18. I subtract that amount from the old numerator. So 23 minus 18 is what? 5. And then I leave my old denominator of 6. Okay, now let's look at another fraction. 38 over 6. Okay, 38 over 6. So it's going to be the same process. 6 goes into 38. How many times without going over? 6 goes into 38.
Oh, 6.
It would be 6 times. Because what is, and here is the, guys, listen, I want you to get into this habit of this mental process. I want you don't have to show the multiplication sign, but you're asking yourself, what is 6 times 6?
36.
And that is what you're subtracting from 38. Again, this is not something that you necessarily have to show as work, but that is the mental process I want you going through. So 6 times 6 is 36. Subtract it from 38, and you have 2 6. Final answer? What's wrong with it? It needs to be reduced to simplest form. I never write an answer that is not in simplest form, so 6 1/3 would be my answer. Okay, so we're still allowed to use our calculators, and sometimes you're going to have really large improper fractions. Okay, so can we do 249 over 13? Can we convert that in our head, most of us? No, okay, that's a little too big. So if you are, for those of you who are having a hard time converting your improper fractions to mixed numbers, let's get out our calculators and let's learn a way that we can use our calculators to figure it out. All right, so this is a division problem. Okay, so in your calculators, divide the top number by the bottom. 249 divided by 13. We're not going, if it gives you a fraction, press your S to D button that's right above the delete button. S to D that's right above the delete button.
Whoa.
We're not going to worry about the numbers in our decimal, okay? What is our whole number that comes from this? What's the whole number? 19. So that is the whole number that's represented in my mixed number. Now, what did I do for the other two numbers that we've already worked? What did I do to get this number right here, 36 and 18? What was I doing? I was subtracting, but how did I come up with that number in the first place? I multiplied my denominator times what I believed was my whole number. 13 times 19 is what I need to do next, because 13 times 19 now gives me what? 247. It gives me the number that I need to subtract from 249. Multiplying the whole number times the denominator gives me the number that I need to subtract to find my new numerator. So I subtract 247. Well, what's 249 minus 247? 2. And over 13. And that is my answer. So just to recap, I divided 249 divided by 13. 19 was my whole number. I now multiply 19 times 13 to give me the number that I subtract from my old numerator to find my new numerator. And that gives me my answer. All right, so those improper fractions that are a little more difficult, or you're having a hard time figuring out what your whole number is, use your calculators and you can easily find the answer. All right, now I want you to do your turn now, numbers 5 through 8. Numbers 5 through 8, your turn now. Give you a few minutes to work on this. Okay, 17 over 11 converts to?
1 and 6 11.
1 and 6 11s. Number 6, 13 over 6.
2 and 1 6.
Number 7.
5 and 2 thirds.
And number 8.
2 and 1 7.
All right, who got them all right? Awesome. Okay, very good. Any questions? All right, now let's move on to example 3. That's my problem. I'm missing a slide. All right, hold on one second. Okay, so now in example 3, we're comparing mixed numbers and fractions. So we have the fraction 17 over 6, and we're comparing it to 2 1/4. Well, the first thing I need to do is convert everything to an improper fraction. Well, my first one's already an improper fraction, right? So the only one I need to work on is my second fraction. What would 2 1/4 be as an improper fraction?
9 over 4.
It would be 9 over 4. There's no work to show. You can use mental math. But now I have another problem. I do not have common denominators. I can't compare. I learned that in the last section. I can't compare fractions that don't have the same denominator. So I start with my larger denominator and I start counting my multiples. Well, does 4 go into 6? Does 4 go into 6?
No.
No. Does 4 go into 12? Yes, it does. So 12 is my LCD. How do I figure out what number goes in my numerator? I multiply. What did I have to multiply 6 times to get to 12? 2. So 17 times 2 is 34. And then same thing here. 4 times what is 12? 3. So 9 times 3 is 27. Whatever I had to multiply the bottom by, I multiply the top by the same number. So now I can compare them. Which fraction is bigger? Very good. I write it in my original problem. I go back to my original and I write my answer. 17 over 6 is greater than 2 1/4. I use my common denominators to be able to compare them, but I always write my answer back into my original problem. 17 over 6 is greater than 2 1/4. All right? Now I want you to try one. I want you to compare 22 over 3 to 7 1/4. The exact same way. Yes, it's up on the screen. Okay, so when you converted 7 1/4, what did you get?
29 over 4.
29 over 4, very good. And what was your LCD? 12, very good. So what was your new numerator for 22 over 3? 88.
88 over 12.
And what was your new numerator for 29 over 4?
87 over 12.
87. Okay, so it's close, but which one's bigger in your original?
22 over 3.
22 over 3 should be a greater than sign. Okay, who got that right? All right, awesome, good job. Any questions? Now, in example 4, we're just taking this one step further, and now we're ordering mixed numbers and fractions. So I have 3 5/8, 3, 17 over 4, and 3 1/2. Okay, so essentially I'm doing exactly what I just did in example 3, except now I'm doing 4 numbers. So the first thing I need to do is change them to improper fractions. 3 5/8 will become what? What will it become? 29 over 8. 3 becomes 3 over 1. 17 over 4 becomes 17 over 4. And 3 1/2 becomes 7 over 2. Now what is my problem? Because I still can't compare them. What's my problem now? That my denominators are not the same. So again, I start with my largest denominator, 8. And the first thing I ask is, well, can the other 3 numbers go into 8 evenly? Can 1 go into 8?
Yes.
Can 4 go into 8? Can 2 go into 8? Yeah, it can. So 8 is my LCD. That was easy. All right, so since 8 is my LCD, I'm going to write my denominator for each of the fractions. How do I figure out what my numerators are going to be?
How many times?
How many times the old denominator goes into the new one? So 8 goes into 8 one time, so that one stays the same. What about the next one? 1 goes into 8 times, so 3 times 8 is 24. All right, I want you to fill in the last two. Okay, so 17 over 4 becomes 34 over 8. And 7 over 2 becomes 28 over 8. All right, now I can clearly see what's the smallest fraction and what's the biggest fraction. But remember, when I'm writing fractions in order, least to greatest, you need to remember this for your homework tonight because you will get it wrong. You have to write it in its original form. So what fraction is the smallest?
3.
It's 3, but it's 24 over 8, and I'm going to write it in my original form, which is 3. Okay, so I'm going to write 3 in my answer. What's my next smallest fraction? What's it going to be, class? Just tell me. 3 1/2. Again, because I'm going to write it in its original form, 3 1/2. All right, what's my next smallest fraction? Okay, it's going to be 3 5/8. And then my largest fraction? 17 over 4. And that's what I would box in as my answer, least to greatest. Now, guys, you must show this work in between to get any credit on your homework tonight. You cannot simply guess at it. All right, I was a little disappointed to see how many people did not show their work on the 4.5 homework. I need you showing your LCD. I need you showing me your work so I know that you're not simply guessing, or that I can make sure that you understand it. All right, and if you understand that, that's everything you need to know for section 4.6.